Feel about the police like 14 and 15? Were you a...
14 was the changing point for me. Up until 14, I didn't have a trusting I didn't look at police in a respectful way or in a way of admiration, because my experience as a young person was when you see the police, you run. Wasn't doing anything, but it was because of my peers and their experiences with the police, our experiences with the police taking loved ones out of our homes.
Yeah.
So it wasn't positive interaction.
Okay, so this is Danielle Outlaw, the police chief for Philadelphia, the most violent city in America. Dangerous city, Jack. And we've been covering it. This sister right here. And you see how she was brought up. She comes from the hood. So she's a little hood booger that made it big. Kind of like Sha'Carri. Except she's no track star. She's a rising star in law enforcement. From Portland, police chief of Portland, to 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, moving from Portland to here to Philadelphia. And she left just in the nick of time in Portland. But this sister has some interesting things to say. And I think you guys are going to be very, very, your thoughts are going to be provoked by the things she says. So let's get into it.
Time for an outside fresh look, and she wowed us all.
On February 10th of last year, Danielle Outlaw became Philadelphia's police commissioner. And what a year and a half it has been. A pandemic, civil unrest, out-of-control murder rate. I've seen the commissioner countless times at conferences and crime scenes, but I wanted to know more. So I spent the day with her.
Just think about the hand that I was dealt, right? Typically, when you have a new commissioner come in, there's an onboarding process. We're making rounds in the community, internally. I mean, you name it. There's events hosted. You meet all the stakeholders. I mean, you're in the rooms. All that stuff happens. What happened with me?
Tell me again what happened.
COVID.
Yep.
So all of those venues, all of those warm touch points, all of those events, all of those opportunities, all of those things that would have happened normally couldn't happen.
Yeah.
And it happened virtually in smaller settings with chunks of time. So it's almost like I got robbed of a whole year.
You ain't the only resident of Philadelphia who got robbed.
So it's almost like I got robbed of a whole year.
With that, nobody wants to hear that you were dealt a bad hand. You know
Absolutely,
what I mean?
and that's why I don't say it. The day I was announced, I was asked the question, what's it like? Heck, I was asked this in Portland too. What's it like being a black woman or the first? And I'm like, look.
That's all I know.
Need I remind you, I chose this profession, but I've been a black woman my whole life. So, I mean, where do I start? Which year? I mean, right? But I bring a different perspective. And I think as black women, we bring our lived experiences to allow us to inform policy, not in a biased way, but there's a different level of empathy because, again, I have sons. And I know what it's like to worry about your kid when they're driving for the first time. I mean, most parents do. But it's different for us because we know that merely because of their appearances, my sons, depending on where you are, they can be afraid of them just because of how they look.
That is unabashedly, objectively horse crap. That's crap. Your sons are looked at a certain way because of their behavior, not because of how they look. Let's stop this, man. Let's hear at Arc Nation push back against that. Because they just say that and there's never any pushback against that. Well, it's because of the color of our skin. No. It's because of your behavior. Your sons will be looked at a certain way because of the way they behave. Okay? Your son will get pulled over if he violates a traffic rule. And even if he does that, the odds of getting pulled over are so low. They make it seem like everybody get pulled over every day. Like, yeah, how many times you get pulled over last year? I got pulled over 17 times. Like, you never get pulled over. The average person never gets pulled over. And for the police chief to have this type of mindset is dangerous, Jack.
But I bring a different perspective, and I think as black women, we bring our lived experiences to allow us to inform policy, not in a biased way, but there's a different level of empathy because, again, I have sons, and I know what it's like to worry about your kid when they're driving for the first time. I mean, most parents do. But it's different for us because we know that merely because of their appearances, my sons, depending on where you are, they can be afraid of them just because of how they look. And so the outcome of a vehicle stop, if they're stopped by the police, can be different depending on where you are in this country. That's a natural fear that we have that comes first before this uniform, right? And so when we go to community meetings and hear that same fear and anxiety expressed by residents, we understand that because we have the same thing. And so because we have that shared experience, then that means we might move a little bit differently in how we lead.
Why don't you knock heads more with our district attorney, Larry Krasner? He keeps letting people out of jail, and the judges are letting people out of jail, and they go back out and they shoot somebody else.
I put the information out there, I put the data out there and make it very clear. I think from day one, from the day I got announced, I made very clear what my position is. I made it very clear that there needs to be serious consequences for those who are out there committing the most violent and serious crimes. My messaging has not changed.
No.
But it's not my place to get in public pissing matches with the chief law enforcement officer of this county that I have to work with professionally. The same things that I've said publicly, I've said behind closed doors. I was the first in my generation to go to college. So I thought that I was going to go straight through and become a social psychologist. I wanted to get a PhD, become a social psychologist, and just wherever that would take me, I would think that I kind of am, right? But like with most people, life happened with me. In my last semester of undergraduate school, I learned that I was going to be a single mother. I was expecting. And I had already worked as a cadet in the Oakland Police Department. And, I was like, well, I need a job with benefits. I got to take care of my kid. And they were there. So I took the physical agility. My son was 2 weeks old, had no business out there. And they just kept their claws in me ever since. I had no idea.
So she's a social worker and a single mother. Wow. Talk about a double doozy. Yeah. She's a social worker, a single mother, and a sister. The trifecta. The most dangerous city. And just think about it. She came from Portland, where they're still protesting every day, to Philadelphia. 57% Sun people. 95% of the murder victims, Sun people. Maybe 97, but they got some bad hombritos over there. But and their police chief is a sister, went to college for social work, and she's a single mom. You literally can't make this stuff up. You literally cannot make this stuff up.
I had no idea that this would be the way that I would give back and contribute to my community. How are you, sir?
Hey. We're in these streets.
We out here.
Do people recognize you without your uniform?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And what?
Yes.
Just people driving by. all going, thank you for what
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah.
There's so much. You have a lot of support, but I think the general public thinks that all the cops don't like you.
Yeah.
The people don't like you. They want you to get out of town.
We have a lot of support, and quite frankly, I mean, look, you can't blame folks for wanting fair and constitutional policing, right? There's
right.
nothing wrong with that. But what people will tell you if you take a moment to listen is that we want more of you. It's just that when I see you, I expect you to treat me with dignity and respect.
Yeah.
Okay, we get that.
Okay.
Let me fix that. Because what she said is, everything that was said right there is true. There's a lot of support for the police department now. Because crime is through the roof. Murders through the roof. Carjackings through the roof. Random attacks by teens are through the roof. However, she said that we want fair and constitutional policing. We want more of you, but we want you to treat it. No, they don't want you to treat them good. They want you to treat the thugs and the criminal suspects good. They don't want you to be nice to them, the people in the community, because the majority of the community is not thugs and criminals. But they'll protest. They want you to be nice to criminal suspects, career criminals, and thugs.
Yeah.
There's so much. You have a lot of support, but I think the general public thinks that all the cops don't like you.
Yeah.
The people don't like you. They want you to get out of town.
We have a lot of support, and quite frankly, I mean, look, you can't blame folks for wanting fair and constitutional policing, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But what people will tell you if you take a moment to listen is that we want more of you. It's just that when I see you, I expect you to treat me with dignity and respect.
Yeah.
Okay, we get that.
Okay.
Absolutely, right? So it's not that. I think somehow the narrative just kind of got twisted over time, and there's a belief that because people are calling for accountability, that they don't want us here at all. That's not the case at all. They say thank you. They recognize that with a lot of these shootings that we've seen, there was a gentleman that I met maybe a couple weeks ago, and he said, look, I appreciate cops. They saved my life. When I got shot in the head, they're the ones that scooped me up and put me in the back of the car and took me to the hospital and saved my life.
Remember I told you guys about those scoop and runs? Remember that? These cops save tens of thousands of black lives every year with those scoop and runs. Because by the time the ambulance get there, the type of bullets they shoot nowadays, it'd be too late a lot of times. The cops are around the corner usually, because the cops are just in these neighborhoods just cruising and just don't post it up on the corner, and the shooting happens, a half a block away from them, and they're already there. Come, speed there, put the guy in the back seat, and fly to the hospital. Save tens of thousands of black lives every year. Not one video done about that outside of this channel. We're the only channel who's covered that.
They say thank you. They recognize that with a lot of these shootings that we've seen, there was a gentleman that I met maybe a couple weeks ago, and he said, look, I appreciate cops. They saved my life. When I got shot in the head, they're the ones that scooped me up and put me in the back of the car and took me to the hospital and saved my life. When I was a child. And I remember that to this day. I appreciate you cops. I've taken more selfies with having no idea where those photos are going to end up. But, it's all positive in its support. How are you? I'm good, thank you.
What's up?
He all right? I'm in good company? Oh, okay.
The negative comments about you get through to you.
Yes.
I mean, like, I get it all the time, too. My God, we're public humans.
Yeah.
Does it ever get to you?
It can if I'm reading them personally. You know what I mean? It's different when I always want to make sure that I know what the narrative is or what the climate is.
I've asked every police commissioner of Philadelphia that I've ever met, you ever think about quitting?
No, I'm not at that point yet. I'm I'm going to continue doing this until something or someone tells me it's time to stop. I'm driven through purpose and passion. This is a labor of love. This is hard labor. I'm not going to lie to you. This has been, hard labor, but I'm constantly reminded of my purpose when a little girl looks up at me in awe and says, "Oh my gosh, you're the boss of all of them," right? Or people come up to me in tears and say that I inspire them, and I'm not even doing it on purpose. And well, what did I do? Or,
Does that happen every day?
Or someone says thank you. Typically, it's something every day that reminds me of my purpose.
And it keeps you going.
And it absolutely keeps me going.
Are there cases that you can't get out of your head?
Yes. And, I think I would be not a human being.
You'd be a robot.
Right? And you can't be. And that's, to me, that's when I know it's time to hang it up and do something different.
Yeah.
When I respond to a scene or whatever it is, or I learn of something, and if the day that I don't have a reaction emotionally, the day I don't get that something in my stomach, that tells me it's time to sit it down.
Just talking about the stories on TV, but you're there, see it.
Yeah.
I would think when kids get hit, they get shot, would be the toughest.
Children, that's a real hard one for me, obviously as a parent.
Yeah.
But, and what do you say? How do you find the words to console a parent or a loved one? It's very difficult.
You have 2 kids.
I have 2 kids.
They're
and
older.
they'll always be babies to me.
Yeah.
But you feel helpless. You feel helpless when you feel like there's something you can't do to fix it.
You have not had a vacation.
No.
No.
But I'm going to take one because there's no honor in showing how far you can go to get to burnout.
Right.
There's nothing attractive about that.
And because you're no good if you're burned out. I ask people on social media, I told them I was going to talk to you, and do you have any questions? Which is a dangerous thing to ask, of course. And they say, why aren't there more cops walking the beat so you get to know the neighbors? And they say, why doesn't the commissioner get out more and walk the streets so we get to know you? It's almost impossible, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. Well, it's not impossible. Let's say this. There's one of me in hundreds of thousands of them, right? So I can be in one spot, and if you don't happen to be in that one spot, or you don't happen to see that we posted it on social media, and I'm not about a lot of fanfare also. So I'm not traveling with cameras and doing all that. I recognize that I should probably do more so people can see that.
Yes.
Okay, she answered that correctly, but I don't think she meant to. The reason the average law-abiding citizen who wants more police doesn't ever really see police is because you're not at the dice game. You're not in the project hallway, the trap. You're not in the alley where they doing their thing. You're not in the stolen car riding around about to do a drug. You're not in these places. The cops are out there. You're just not in those places because you're not a thug. Trust me, the thugs, they see the police plenty. They're in the known drug spot. They're on the known corner where the shootings always happen. They're hanging out in the corner store. That's been a problem spot. They're riding around in a stolen car with guns and drugs. Okay? So you don't see yes, we all want more police. But you're not going to see them because you're a square. Yet you whine and complain when there's a bad interaction between those police and these criminal suspects. And you're whining about it. They're out there doing their job. And it kind of dispels their narrative too. at the same time that the police always messing with black people. No. You've just dispelled the narrative yourself with your big mouth, Sun community. Let Sun people talk enough and they'll tell you the truth.
And they say, why aren't there more cops walking the beat? So you get to know the neighbors. And they say, why doesn't the commissioner get out more and walk the street so we get to know you? It's almost impossible, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. Well, it's not impossible. Let's say this. There's one of me in hundreds of thousands of them, right? So I can be in one spot, and if you don't happen to be in that one spot, or you don't happen to see that we posted it on social media, and I'm not about a lot of fanfare also. So I'm not traveling with cameras and doing all that. I recognize that I should probably do more so people can see that.
Yes, I know you're not shy.
Yeah.
But you don't like the spotlight.
No,
but maybe
it's not that I don't like the spotlight. My thing is I like genuine interactions, right? So I know when I get out and about and I want to engage with community or even officers, I'm going to get more of a genuine interaction than I will with all of, the stuff around me. So it's not like I don't like spotlight, but I also think, too, there was an expectation. It's almost like folks have me running for a political office that don't even exist.
Yeah.
I'm not a politician.
We keep banging on Philadelphia, and it is bad. But it's bad all over the country, and I don't know what it is.
You don't know what it is, Mr. Reporter Man, who reports on these stories every night, who every night is in the production meeting with the staff at the news station going over the stories. Then y'all decide which ones y'all going to cover. And the ones you cover and the ones you don't have time to cover in that news segment that night, it's all the same group of people. And you don't know what it is. Wow.
But it's bad all over the country, and I don't know what it is. Do you know what it is? Why are we killing each other?
So I think anecdotally, we know specifically here, people are killing each other over narcotics.
Yeah.
The social media beefs, the arguments, guns. Arguments that would have, if you take the gun out of the equation, wouldn't be a shooting or a killing. We know.
Okay, so she says without the gun, there wouldn't be a shooting and killing. I give you Exhibit A, London, where there's no guns, very few. Guns are banned. There's so much stabbing and knife violence there that it's almost like our gun violence. And you know who's doing it. So we don't even have to do that. You know what group of Londoners is doing it. But she said something else about arguments. And I did a video a few years ago about St. Louis, and they found out that the majority of their murders were because of arguments. And that says something when, we have a lot of when you talk to the people who have the data, who know what's going on, who interviewed the witnesses and interviewed the suspects and, got the real story. And you find out they always say, well, it was over arguments. Think about that. The majority of what we see. Now, we have a lot of people that get shot with stray bullets, and there's always an innocent bystander that gets shot. And there's always the street crime, the carjackings and the random attacks, and, but the majority of the targeted attacks, the motive is an argument. Damn, Nick Cannon lied.
We're dealing with mindset. We're dealing with something going on up here to where people, because of the access that they have to these guns, are quick to draw and shoot as opposed to any, alternative strategy. So that's clearly a thing. People are still trying to figure it out. Again, nobody's blaming COVID, but...
our viewers, that's another thing. Quit blaming the gun violence on COVID.
Yeah, they said that the last time I was on the show.
Yeah.
It's like nobody's blaming, but you have to acknowledge that everything that already existed here, the social determinants that lead to gun violence, that's proven, that we know, everything was exacerbated.
Yeah.
So you can't ignore that.
What's the solution? Because I think I know what it is.
Okay, you tell me first. You go first.
There isn't one. Me personally, I've given up. We've talked about it 1,000 times on the show. I don't know how you stop it.
And I said that a while ago when people rolled their eyes and people got in the comment section, come on, man, come on, you gotta be. There's no solution. They won't even address who's doing it. Okay? There's no possibility of a solution. Okay? There's no possibility of a solution. And then a lot of this stuff is coded into these people's genome. So some of these things, like the gratification deferment, which leads to the arguments leading to violence, because you feel a certain way and you want to act on it, and you don't have the ability to not act on it, the emotion you're feeling. So a lot of this stuff can't be fixed. It can only be curtailed. And in order to curtail it, you're probably going to need a police chief who's not a social worker, a single mom, and a sister.
There isn't one. Me personally, I've given up. We've talked about it 1,000 times on the show. I don't know how you stop it.
I think there's a lot of variables, but the one thing that still, and again, we talk about the need for more social services, right? Obviously, we have a piece in it. There's enforcement, but we're the entryway, right? What happens after we make an arrest is not within our purview. But then there's also another thing. A lot of these folks out here know who's responsible. So that's another piece that we have to work to strengthen. Well, whether you call it snitching or being a good witness, I mean, a lot of perspectives, and I know this because I've personally spoken with people, a lot of perspectives change when it hits closer to home. And right now, there's still a lot of, oh, well, that didn't happen to me, that's a us, them, or an us thing or a them thing. Apathy is growing, and a lot of this is becoming the norm for folks. We're seeing a lot of old heads, typically there would be older people, are now teenagers.
Yeah.
So our shooters are getting younger and younger, and our victims are getting younger and younger. When we come together in numbers and say, look, I'm not having this anymore, or where were you last night, young person, or I know you have a gun in my house, get it out, right? More of that, more people coming forward, and they can do it anonymously, right, to help solve some of these cases.
I think they're afraid.
Deterrence is huge, and it's not just deterrence in a non-traditional way. Some people have to go to jail for a long time.